first couple of weeks of February here in Greater Brisbane have been crazy, and I've got so much to share with you to make sure that you're up to date on everything you need to know. There's 20 updates, so I'd better get going, but don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you get any value from it. It does make a difference. But here we go. It's now been 6 months since the last state government brought in the 50-cent fares for public transport across Queensland on August 5th, and the new state government locking them in permanently in November of last year. So how have we fared? Has it increased public transport patronage, and has it reduced traffic congestion? Well, the figures are in. More than 93.3 million trips were taken on public transport in southeast Queensland, which is an increase of 18.3% on the benchmark period in 2023. And that's increase across all modes, including a massive 42.8% increase in people taking ferries, 18.6% more people taking trains, and 15.8% rise in people choosing to jump on a bus. In Greater Brisbane, the most notable increase in public transport usage was in Logan, with 20% more patronage. All of this hasn't come without negative side effects, and Brisbane City Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner has said that some bus and ferry services have reached capacity. He signalled additional services being added, and of course the second Metro bus line will be rolled out in the second quarter of 2025, along with the second stage of upgrades to Brisbane's bus network, including 5 new bus routes, 4 new all-day services, and the start of 24-hour weekend travel. But what about the effect of increased public transport usage on traffic congestion? Well, it's been hard to track down any reliable data on that. The latest INRIX Global Traffic Scorecard saw Brisbane move from 12th to 10th worst city in the world for traffic congestion, but the methodologies they used are questionable, and there's a video in the works looking at that in detail, which will be out soon, so make sure you're subscribed and have clicked the bell so that you don't miss out when it does come out. But I'd really love to hear from you about if you've noticed any change in congestion since the 50-cent fares came in. What about fare evasion? How much effect have cheaper fares had on people failing to tap on and off when they use public transport? Well, there were significantly fewer fare evasion penalty infringement notices given out since the introduction of the 50-cent fares, but from the day the fares first came into effect until the 2nd of February this year, there were still 3,326 fines issued to people who had not paid the 50 cents to ride, with another 21,584 warnings issued, mostly to minors. One important thing to keep in mind when looking at the figures is that TransLink actually stepped up their enforcement activities from the time the 50-cent fares were introduced, so the drop in fare evasion levels would be even more marked if we were comparing the rate per interaction with compliance officers. The fact that over $1 million in fines were still issued after the introduction of the 50-cent fares supports research that found price is only one of a number of reasons people don't pay fares on public transport. But that's for another time. It's much harder to evade paying for tickets if you're travelling internationally, but one way you may be able to save money if you're planning a trip internationally is considering who you choose for travel insurance. Did you know that the winner of Best International Travel Insurance for Value in Finder's 2024 Travel Insurance Awards is a local Brisbane company? Wise and Silent Travel Insurance won the 2024 Value Award because it costs less on average, but covers you for more. They're also the official travel insurance provider to Australian passengers on Scoot Airlines and the sponsor of this video. Backed by a global insurance provider and a 24/7 medical assistance team, the rave reviews on Trustpilot confirm that you can travel with total peace of mind if you choose Wise and Silent for your next overseas trip. Click this QR code or the link in the video description to get an exclusive 10% discount on your premium. You may have noticed Brisbane's bus drivers aren't wearing the usual uniform at the moment. Well, it's a part of a protest by the Rail, Tram and Bus Union over Brisbane City Council's offer of a 3.5% pay increase, which the union says amounts to a pay cut when factored against inflation. The union is asking for a 4.5% increase each year over the next 2 years. Drivers are refusing to wear the uniforms for 30 days, and if they don't reach a satisfactory agreement in that time, they'll step up their protest to what they call malicious compliance, which is where they'll adhere strictly to the rules, such as taking 4-minute breaks in between routes, even if the previous route was running late, and taking full meal breaks, which they're reportedly often forced to cut short if they are to maintain the route schedules. TransLink reports a slight drop in on-time running of buses compared to 12 months ago, and the union says drivers are dealing with increased passenger levels due to the 50-cent fares, staff shortages, and traffic congestion. But moving now to a rail update, and people who take the Shorncliffe line should be aware that buses will replace trains between Northgate and Shorncliffe from 7:45 until the first service the next day, on Monday the 17th and Thursday the 20th of February. This is to allow for testing of the new European train control system on the line as part of Cross River Rail upgrades. The Cross River Rail Authority says this is a necessary step that must be completed before testing in the new tunnels can commence. Now to a continuing saga that will potentially have a massive impact on Brisbane. With no sign of relief from their financial issues, Star Entertainment, who own a 50% share of the Destination Brisbane Consortium, the group behind the construction and running of the Queen's Wharf precinct, have this week spoken publicly about the possibility of selling their share to the other two organisations who currently hold 25% each, Chow Tai Fook Enterprises and Far East Consortium. So far, Star has rejected their offer, saying that it didn't bring enough value, but we'll be keeping an eye on how things progress, so stay tuned. A quick thank you to all the people who have shown their support of the Brisbane Channel by becoming members. Also everyone who's shown thanks by buying me coffees. You're all appreciated, and you really make all the work that goes into making these updates much more worthwhile, so thank you. Now to something completely different, and it seems love is in the air in Brisbane. On Valentine's Day this year, 31 couples tied the knot at the Brisbane Registry, which is almost double the previous record. The registry is also setting a new monthly record, with 201 couples booked in February, smashing the previous record, which was only set last month with 172 weddings conducted in January. So what comes next? Maybe babies? And the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages also released details of last year's births across the state. The most common boy's name given was Oliver, with 445 newborns given the name in 2024. Oliver has sat at the top of the list for the last 12 months, and there's a new leader in the list of girls' names, with Charlotte taking out first place for 2024. If that's the name you chose for your daughter last year, she was one of 319 across Queensland for 2024. There are a couple more updates that are relevant to all of Greater Brisbane before we get to updates for each specific LGA. Firstly, the state government this week announced $2 million in grants to support Queensland local councils in expanding their battery collection points in the wake of a 100% increase in battery fires over the last 5 years across the state. This will be complemented by education and awareness initiatives. Okay, so I've had to move back inside due to technical issues, but let's keep going. The mayors of southeast Queensland are preparing to head off on a 10-day trip, meeting with leaders in Paris, Manchester and Singapore to glean insight from how public-private partnerships can be leveraged to support major infrastructure delivery projects, such as the Olympic Games, and also exploring transport projects that connect venues and communities. Objectives of the trip include examining how cities that host major events manage growth, housing affordability and waste management, and how they can become more sustainable through innovative funding approaches. Also, how mass movement of people and goods can be facilitated, and how major events can be leveraged to create a compelling global identity, promote trade and investment, and deliver economic and urban renewal. And while we're thinking about things like the Olympics, this week the Queensland Government announced they would make the Queensland Academy of Sport a statutory body on July the 1st. For those who, like me a few days ago, have no idea what that is, it means that the Academy will be more autonomous and have more power to instate regulations without needing to go through parliamentary processes. The move is seen as a way to maximise the agility of the Academy, giving athletes every advantage in the lead up to the LA and Brisbane Olympic and Paralympic Games. In Paris, Queensland athletes took home more than half of all medals won by Australians at the Olympics, and Queensland also had the highest number of Paralympic athletes yet, who took home 28 medals. In a mammoth effort by a number of animal rescue groups, over 100 dogs and cats are being relocated to Brisbane from Mount Isa, a regional town over 2,000 kilometres northwest of the city. Mount Isa's pound was overflowing and unable to manage the number of animals coming in, largely due to a lack of desexing of pets in the town. Giving these dogs and cats a better life is no mean task, with transport, microchipping and vaccination needed. The estimated cost of driving and flying the canines and felines to Brisbane in hope of a better life is around $25,000, with animal foster and rescue organisations chipping in time and money to stop large numbers having to be euthanized. I personally recommend, if you want a new furry family member, find a rescue dog or cat to give a better life to. Our dog Buddy was a rescue originally. He's had a tough life, but now he lives like an emperor. Let's now get to the LGA-specific updates, starting with Brisbane City. After 3 rounds of community consultation, Brisbane City Council have unveiled plans to create a corridor of parks along Kingfisher Creek in Woolloongabba and East Brisbane. The project will connect a series of stepping stone parks with pedestrian and cycle paths along a 1 kilometre stretch, increasing active transport connections between South Bank and the city with Coorparoo and Norman Park. It will also see water flow moved from underground concrete drains to an above-ground waterway, which will help with flood resilience in a similar way to the award-winning works done at Hanlon Park in Stones Corner. Brisbane City Council will be seeking funding from the other levels of government to support the project. The start of the final stage of another project rehabilitating a 27-kilometre creek on the south side was also announced in the last week. Brisbane City Council put out a release confirming that they would be working with the state government to complete work along Stable Swamp Creek, including rubbish removal, weeding, planting, bank stabilisation and desilting. The final stage of the creek rejuvenation works will start in March. On Friday, the Brisbane Channel attended the opening of Mulga Bill's cafe at the foot of Kangaroo Point Bridge. The cafe, along with Stilts, the restaurant built on the bridge, which will open soon, are operated by Tassis Group, which also runs Oppa, Longwang and Rich and Rare. And rich is the word, as Mulga Bill's is not cheap. I'll tell you about that in a video later, but I will say that the good thing is that revenue from leasing out the cafe and restaurant go to maintaining the bridge, which makes it kind of self-sustaining. Also, solar power generated from the panels on the bridge will help power the establishments. The last update from Brisbane City is that there's been a rise in neo-Nazi activity in the city. Neo-Nazi posters were found glued to traffic poles in Milton just days after anti-Semitic and anti-immigration flyers were distributed to mailboxes in Annerley and Maruka, calling on white Australians to join the National Socialist movement. The City Council described the activities as sickening, with Deputy Mayor Fiona Cunningham saying that we need to do all we can to protect our vibrant multicultural community by stamping out divisive and hateful behaviour. Let's head now to Ipswich, where the city has launched its first ever regional sports academy. The initiative is a collaboration between Bremer State High School and the University of Southern Queensland, designed to provide elite training, expert coaching and academic support to young athletes in the region. It's hoped that the academy will help support student athletes balancing developing their sporting prowess with excelling academically. Over to Redland City, and 1 year after implementing the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Initiative, the council now has over 370 employees participating in the program. The Sunflower Initiative is a way that people with hidden disabilities, which can be neurological, cognitive, neurodevelopmental or physical, can voluntarily flag that they may require extra assistance when shopping, taking public transport, working or doing things in public spaces. They do this by wearing a green sunflower lanyard, wristband or badge. Council employees show that they're able to support people with additional needs by wearing white sunflower lanyards or pins. The initiative, which is globally recognised, is designed to create a more inclusive environment. Now to Logan, where a report by Healthcare Directory Cleanbill found that the number of GPs that bulk bill their patients dropped by 23% over the last year in that LGA. Bulk billing is where the cost of a consultation is the same as the Medicare rebate, meaning patients eligible for Medicare have no out-of-pocket costs for seeing the doctor. While availability of bulk billing consultations dropped in Logan, the federal electorate of Ford, of which a large chunk is in Logan, is the only electorate in the state with more than 30% of GPs bulk billing all of their adult patients. Finally to Moreton Bay, and the City Council will be closing Gayunda Arboretum Park from the 17th of February, where a number of people experiencing homelessness have been camping. The council cites public health and safety concerns as being behind the decision to close the park, where a recent review reported human waste, used toilet paper, used syringes and drug paraphernalia among the health hazards observed. They say the area will be fenced off for remediation for an extended period of time. Moreton Bay City Council say they've engaged extensively with the Department of Housing, who will connect people experiencing homelessness who are camping in the park with alternative accommodation options and appropriate supports. And a little update from Moreton Bay, where local resident Melissa Forbes looks likely to have to remove a street library she set up in front of her home. Street libraries are small book collections that are accessible to the public to borrow and exchange books free of charge, and can be found all over Greater Brisbane. Unfortunately though, someone put in a complaint to council, and as Miss Forbes's is on public land, she would need to show that she had public liability insurance to the value of $20 million. Forbes says that she will take it down, but she and her husband will look into viable alternatives. The street library had been welcomed by many community members, clearly all but one. But Councillor Carl Winchester says he is looking into ways to better support street libraries moving forward. These updates aren't all you'll be seeing on the Brisbane Channel. I know I keep talking about other videos, but believe me, they are coming soon. Very, very soon. Along with some other very exciting things. So stay tuned, as 2025 will be a big year for the channel. I'll see you in the next video.